Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that touches everyone who grows food, whether you're tending a small backyard garden or managing thousands of acres of crops. We're talking about Iowa's famous black soil, why it's losing fertility, and why November fields across the Midwest are showing signs of stress that didn't exist a generation ago. Iowa's soil has long been considered one of the most productive on Earth. For more than a century, it has powered the country's corn, soybeans, and livestock feed. Its richness comes from deep layers of organic matter built up over thousands of years by tall prairie grasses. This soil made the Midwest a global agricultural powerhouse. But today, the picture is changing. Each November, when crops are harvested and the fields are laid bare, we see erosion scars, thinning topsoil, and areas that no longer hold water or nutrients the way they once did. Many farmers report yields that depend increasingly on heavy fertilizer inputs instead of natural soil fertility. What we see now is not just seasonal fatigue, it's a long-term shift. In this video, we'll look closely at what's happening to Iowa's black soil, the major causes of degradation, and what these changes mean for the future of American crops. Whether you're a home gardener or a farm professional, understanding these trends will help you protect your own soil and make informed choices about growing food in a changing climate. Let's dive in. To understand why Iowa's soil is losing fertility today, we first need to understand why it became so incredibly fertile in the first place. Iowa is often called the heart of America's farmland, and for good reason. Its rich, black soil, known as mollisol, is among the most productive soil types in the world. But this didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen by luck. Thousands of years ago, Iowa wasn't covered with corn or soybeans. It was covered with tall grass prairie, stretching as far as the eye could see. These grasses, big bluestem, switchgrass, Indian grass, had root systems running 10 to 15 feet deep. Every year, millions of these roots grew, died, decomposed, and added new layers of organic matter. Over countless seasons, this cycle built extraordinarily deep topsoil, sometimes over 14 inches thick, dark, nutrient-rich, and full of microbial life. This organic matter wasn't just dirt, it was a living sponge, capable of holding water, filtering nutrients, and supporting an entire ecosystem underground. Early settlers were amazed by how dark and soft the soil felt, and how easily crops grew with minimal inputs. Compared to many other agricultural regions, Iowa required far less fertilizer because nature had already done centuries of work. But when Europeans arrived, nearly all the prairie was plowed under within just a few decades. Intensive farming began, and with it came the first steps towards soil decline. What had taken thousands of years to form began thinning rapidly. Prairie plants were replaced with annual crops that don't build soil at the same rate. Deep-rooted perennials gave way to shallow-rooted monocultures, and instead of soil accumulating, the land began slowly losing its precious top layer. Today, as we look at Iowa's November fields, bare, harvested, and exposed, we're not just seeing the end of a growing season. We're seeing the long-term consequences of replacing diverse, year-round vegetation with systems that leave soil uncovered half the year. Some regions have already lost half of their original topsoil. As gardeners, we know what this means. Soil that loses organic matter becomes harder, less absorbent, and far more dependent on fertilizer to produce the same yields. Understanding this history helps us see both the value of Iowa's soil and the urgency of protecting what remains. The traits that once made this land world famous, its depth, structure, and organic richness, can be rebuilt, but only with deliberate action. Before we talk about erosion, compaction, and climate impacts, it's important to appreciate just how extraordinary this soil once was, and why losing it matters for everyone who relies on the food grown here. When we talk about the decline of Iowa's black soil, erosion is one of the most urgent and visible threats. It's not dramatic like a flood or a storm, and you often won't notice it happening in real time. But erosion silently removes some of the richest, most biologically active soil on Earth, grain by grain, storm by storm. Throughout November, Iowa's fields are typically bare after harvest. The corn and soybeans have been removed. Crop residue has often been reduced or baled, and the soil is left vulnerable. Without strong plant roots or thick surface cover, there's nothing to hold the topsoil in place. During this period, a single heavy rainfall can wash away more soil than an entire season of careful management can rebuild. Water erosion begins with something as simple as raindrop impact. When raindrops strike bare soil, they break apart soil aggregates, those little clumps that keep soil airy and healthy. Once broken, tiny particles can be carried away in sheets, rills, and eventually small gullies. If you've ever walked a field in late fall and noticed channels carved into the surface, that's erosion leaving a permanent mark. Wind erosion is just as damaging, especially in open November landscapes. Strong gusts can lift dry soil particles and carry them across long distances. Not only does this remove fertility from one part of the field, but it also creates dust pollution and uneven soil quality. Farmers often report that hilltops become thinner and less productive over time, while low spots accumulate heavy, nutrient-poor sediments. The consequences of erosion aren't only physical. When topsoil disappears, the nutrients within it, nitrogen, phosphorus, organic carbon, leave with it. Water infiltration declines, meaning the soil can't store moisture for next year's crops. Biological life suffers too. Earthworms, microbes, and fungi lose the environment they need to thrive. Many farmers in Iowa say that the topsoil their grandparents farmed is simply no longer there. Some regions have lost several inches of organic rich soil, and the impacts show up in reduced yields, increased fertilizer costs, and more drought sensitivity. Erosion is especially severe in November because the land enters a vulnerable transition phase. Crops are gone. Cover crops, if planted, are still young, and winter has not yet locked the soil in place. This window can determine how much soil survives through the cold season. The good news? Erosion is preventable. Practices like leaving more residue on the surface, maintaining contour strips, planting cover crops before the first frost, and reducing tillage can all dramatically reduce soil loss. But the first step is recognizing the scale of the problem. When we see those open November fields, we're not looking at a harmless pause between seasons. We're looking at the front line of soil degradation. While erosion removes the physical soil, nutrient depletion and compaction quietly attack its fertility from within. These two issues are less visible than gullies or dust clouds, but over decades, they can be just as damaging. And they often work together to make the problem worse. Let's start with nutrient depletion. Iowa's fields grow corn and soybeans year after year, and these crops are incredibly demanding. Corn alone removes substantial amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium from the soil. If the nutrients aren't carefully replaced, or if crop residues are removed rather than returned to the field, the soil gradually loses its natural fertility. This is sometimes called mining the soil. Farmers may notice that yields stay high only with larger and larger fertilizer inputs, a signal that the soil itself is weakening. Now consider compaction. Modern farming relies on heavy machinery, especially during late harvest in November. Combine harvesters, tractors, and grain carts can weigh several tons. When this machinery moves over moist fields, it presses soil particles together, reducing pore space. Compacted soil has several problems. It doesn't drain well. It resists root penetration. It reduces oxygen for microbes, and water can pool instead of soaking in. Essentially, compaction suffocates the soil. These problems, nutrient depletion and compaction, are interconnected. Nutrient-poor soil has weaker structure, making it more prone to erosion. Compacted soil doesn't allow roots to grow deep, reducing the plant's ability to recycle nutrients back into the soil. Over time, this cycle accelerates degradation. By November, these effects become particularly noticeable. Fields appear harder, less absorbent, and more patchy in productivity. Fortunately, there are practical ways to combat these challenges. Crop rotation, reduced tillage, cover crops, and organic amendments like compost or manure can restore nutrients and improve soil structure.
Controlled traffic farming, keeping machinery on specific lanes, can reduce compaction. Even small changes make a difference over time. For gardeners, the lesson is similar. Avoid walking on wet soil, add organic matter regularly, rotate crops, and maintain plant cover whenever possible. The health of your soil directly impacts the productivity of your plants. Iowa's fields are a large-scale example, but the principles apply everywhere soil is grown on. By understanding nutrient depletion and compaction, we can see why soil fertility is declining, and we can start reversing it before it's too late. Climate change isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it shows up quietly, in how fields look in November, in how long the soil stays wet, or in how storms behave. In Iowa, these subtle shifts have added up, directly contributing to the decline of the state's black soil. Many farmers say the fields today simply don't dry out the way they used to. And when we understand how climate patterns are changing, it becomes clear why soil degradation is accelerating. One of the biggest changes is the rise in heavy rainfall events. The Midwest is experiencing more intense downpours, especially in spring and fall. When storms drop 2 or 3 inches of rain in a short period, bare November fields have almost no protection. Those heavy raindrops hit exposed soil, break the surface structure, and trigger fast-moving runoff. What once would have been a gentle autumn shower now behaves more like a summer thunderstorm, stripping soil away before winter arrives. Temperature patterns are shifting too. Iowa's autumns are warmer and last longer, but they are also wetter. The window between harvest and winter freeze, when the soil used to rest, has become unstable. Some years, the soil remains unfrozen until late December. During that time, repeated freeze-thaw cycles break soil aggregates apart, making the surface even more vulnerable to erosion during early winter rains. In other years, sudden cold snaps leave fields waterlogged and compacted as machinery rushes to finish harvesting before the ground refreezes. Wind intensity is also increasing in the region. Stronger gusts across open fields in late fall can lift dry soil particles into the air, especially when vegetation cover is low. Farmers notice this in hilltops that become pale and thin over time.
What used to be deep, dark soil gradually becomes lighter, and that color change is a warning sign. Organic matter is leaving the landscape.
All of these climate pressures, more rain, more wind, warmer autumns, combine to create a perfect storm for soil loss. The problem is not just the severity of individual weather events, but their frequency and timing. When the land is already vulnerable after harvest, even one major storm can undo months of soil-building practices. When storms become more common, the damage compounds year after year. For gardeners, these patterns may feel familiar. Waterlogged beds, unpredictable frost dates, and soil that crusts or dries faster than it used to. The same forces that challenge our backyard gardens are magnified across Iowa's millions of acres. Understanding climate's role helps us see that soil degradation is not just a farming problem, it's a system-wide challenge. Whether we grow food on 2 acres or 200, adapting to these new climate realities is essential. And as we look at Iowa's November fields today, we can clearly see how a shifting climate is reshaping the land that feeds the country. So, what does all of this mean for the future of crops in Iowa and everywhere else that depends on healthy soil?
If current trends continue, we can expect increasing instability in yields. Soil that lacks organic matter can't store water, can't hold nutrients, and can't support strong roots. That means crops will struggle more during droughts, drown more easily during heavy rains, and require more fertilizer just to maintain the same level of productivity. But the future doesn't have to be bleak. Soil is alive, and living systems can recover with the right care. Across Iowa, more farmers are adopting practices that rebuild soil health rather than deplete it. One of the most effective strategies is cover cropping. Even a simple rye cover can protect the soil through winter, reduce erosion, and feed microbes when the growing season begins again. Another key practice is reduced tillage, or even no-till farming. Minimizing soil disturbance keeps organic matter intact, preserves structure, and allows earthworms and fungi to rebuild natural networks underground. Crop rotation, such as adding small grains or forage crops, brings diversity back to the soil, breaking pest cycles and improving nutrient balance. Organic matter additions also play a major role. Compost, manure, and mulches help restore carbon, improve structure, and increase water-holding capacity. And in many regions, controlled traffic farming helps reduce compaction by limiting machinery to designated lanes. Over time, these changes transform soil from a stressed, fragile medium into a resilient, self-sustaining ecosystem. Home gardeners can apply these same principles. Keep soil covered year-round. Avoid stepping on wet beds. Rotate plant families. And feed the soil generously with compost. Healthy soil produces healthier plants, requires fewer fertilizers, and weathers climate extremes more effectively.
Iowa's black soil took thousands of years to build, but with commitment and smart management, we can protect what remains and begin rebuilding what was lost. The next generation of crops and the next generation of farmers and gardeners will depend on the choices we make today. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more practical insights on gardening, soil health, and sustainable farming.